Namaskar, Jai Hind friends. Welcome to Geopolitics with Anshuman. The FBI just changed the Nijjar story. Why now? Something just happened, and the FBI's latest indictment could reshape the public narrative around the Nijjar case. Why did that happen? In this video, I'll deconstruct this hidden strategy for you so that by the end of the video you get to understand what exactly are the Five Eyes nations up to. See viewers, less than 24 hours ago the FBI and the LAPD and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police held an explosive joint press conference in Los Angeles where they unsealed a sweeping international indictment under a massive global crackdown called, quote unquote, Operation Hardball. They targeted around 37 individuals across the three major India-linked crime syndicates, and within these court documents, they explicitly named jailed gangster Lawrence Bishnoi and his North American deputy Goldy Brar. But here is the absolute bombshell. For the first time, the United States federal prosecutors have officially charged Lawrence Bishnoi and Goldy Brar with ordering the July 2023 assassination of Khalistani separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Canada. Almost for 3 years, the former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had repeatedly maintained that the Indian government was behind the hit. It was a claim that New Delhi repeatedly dismissed as completely absurd. But yesterday the Americans stepped in and they dropped a massive, you can say, a legal hammer with a game-changing twist. Neither the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, nor the United States Attorney's Office alleged any Indian government involvement. Instead, focusing their allegation on members of an alleged transnational criminal network. Let's look at the raw, crazy details of this Operation Hardball, because this wasn't a standard local police raid but a multi-year global sting operation spanning from the United States to Canada to Europe and even India, where out of the 37 people charged, 24 are already in handcuffs after being tracked down in California, Indiana, Georgia, Canada and Spain. The indictments target three distinct networks. One is the Lawrence Bishnoi gang, the Jaggu Bhagwanpuria gang, and an international narcotics trafficking organization run by one individual named Ravinder Singh Thanda. Now, according to the FBI, these groups were not just local street thugs, but were running a highly sophisticated corporate supply chain. If we follow their modus operandi, how did they actually run this operation? First, what did they ship? They smuggled over 1,000 kilograms of high-grade narcotics across international borders. Then secondly, how did they transport? What they did was they hid the narcotics inside long-haul semi-trucks and commercial farm vehicles traveling directly from Southern California up to Canada. And third, they always had an inside man. They literally hired an insider working at the Canadian Border Services Agency to tip them off on exactly when and where border checks were happening, so their trucks could slip through right through the checkpoints. And finally, look at their unique HR policy for employee bonuses. This is really funny and interesting because the indictment states that the gang leadership in India would reward their loyal shooters by sponsoring their visas to move to America and Canada, meaning that instead of regular HR policies like health insurance or a retirement plan, these guys were handing out foreign visas or as your corporate performance perks. So this was the modus operandi, how they worked. Now let's look closer at the Nijjar case. It has been listed as HSN, Hardeep Singh Nijjar case in the official court documents. So, according to the unsealed files, no later than June 18th, 2023, Lawrence Bishnoi managed to use a contraband cell phone from his jail cell to send a photograph and multiple specific addresses of Nijjar to a co-conspirator in North America to facilitate the hate. The gang then allegedly used the high-profile assassination on social media to build their fearsome reputation, which they systematically used to supercharge their multi-million-dollar extortion schemes against wealthy members of the Indian diaspora in the United States and Canada. Suppose if a businessman refused to pay up, the gang would simply point out to the Nijjar hit and say, look, what we can do in broad daylight. That's how they actually extorted. So because of these operations, the FBI has now placed a fresh $50,000 bounty on Goldy Brar, who is actively hiding somewhere in between California, Canada and Mexico. On papers, this looks like a straightforward victory for global law enforcement, where the streets are cleaner and the bad guys are behind bars, but still. And look at the massive logical puzzle staring right us at the face. Friends, let's use basic common sense here, because Lawrence Bishnoi and that fellow, the other one, Jaggi Bhagwanpuria, are currently sitting inside high security prison cell in India. So how does a gangster locked inside a maximum security jail cell manage to seamlessly coordinate an international multi-million-dollar cartel while managing fleets of your semi-trucks in California, bribing custom officials in Canada, tracking international drug shipments and ordering targeted hits on the other side of the planet using smuggled mobile phones? You just tell me, is it plausible that Western agencies only discovered this network right now? Or is it more likely that they have been monitoring it for years before deciding to act publicly? Many veteran analysts would argue that these intelligence institutions or agencies don't work that way and rarely just stumble into things, meaning they have likely been monitoring these networks, tapping these encrypted phones and collecting this data for a very long time. So what brings us to the ultimate question is, why did FBI choose to uncover this massive case right now? See friends, to understand the precise timing, we have to look at the wider picture through strategic intelligence lenses. A compelling interpretation is that the Five Eyes Alliance, consisting of the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia and New Zealand, rarely drops a public bombshell of this scale purely out of goodness of their hearts, as major institutional moves often align with broader strategic goals that carry an unstated political price tag. Friends, look at where India stands today. India's economy is surging rapidly toward the global top 3 spot, and strategically India is an absolutely indispensable military and economic partner for the West to counter China's rise in the Indo-Pacific region. But India refuses to be submissive junior partner to anyone. When Washington told India to stop buying cheap Russian oil, New Delhi firmly stood its ground and basically said, no thank you, our primary duty is to our own citizens, proving that India maintains a completely independent, autonomous foreign policy. The United States national security establishment operates on a very cold, historic logic of the balance of power, meaning they deeply value having India as an ally. But their institutional statecraft dictates that they avoid a partner becoming completely independent and uncontrollable, which is why superpowers naturally seek subtle diplomatic leverage over their partners just in case they need bargaining power during future negotiations. This is always the modus operandi of bigger nations, mostly the United States. So think of this like a volume dial. When India is cooperating with broader Western strategic objectives, the volume on these sensitive gang, crime and diaspora issues appear to stay very low. Intelligence agencies watch, collect data, track phones and continue building cases. From this perspective, the timing can appear as though the volume dial has suddenly been turned up to say 10. Suddenly you get a massive synchronized global law enforcement sweep, high profile FBI press conferences and explosive headlines linking Indian syndicates to international narcotic trafficking and assassinations on Western soil. Here is the catch, friends. By not alleging any Indian government involvement in the Nijjar case, the US is playing the classic good cop to Justin Trudeau's, the former Canadian Prime Minister's bad cop, effectively providing New Delhi with a polite, honorable exit route from the Canadian diplomatic standoff while simultaneously demonstrating the immense reach of its intelligence capabilities. Where was the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and what did they investigate? Why did they solely depend on the FBI? Which means they had no case there. They used the FBI for their own convenience. So, if one accepts this geopolitical reading, the implied message to New Delhi could be, we know exactly how your domestic security vulnerabilities connect to global networks. We can dismantle these diaspora systems, freeze assets, and squeeze these networks whenever we want. We just solved your biggest diplomatic headache with Canada, so let's see how smoothly we can cooperate on future trade and security deals. So, the United States is using that Nijjar case to try to bring New Delhi on track with the future trade and security deals. That's how we can infer. But perhaps the biggest takeaway is not about the FBI, it's about India's growing weight in world politics. Great powers don't spend this much time. I mean, the time the United States is spending trying to influence countries that don't matter. Now, they are spending more time on India. This is the very fact that India has become central to conversation on trade, security, technology and the Indo-Pacific. Now it's clear from what the United States is doing. So India is no longer on the sidelines of global geopolitics. It's proven fact now. So it's now one of the key players shaping the board itself. So this is exactly why every major power, whether friend or competitor, must now take India's interests seriously. So friends, what do you think? Was this simply outstanding international police work? Or was it also a carefully timed geopolitical signal? Either way, one thing is clear. India now sits at the center of the world's strategic calculations. And in geopolitics, countries that matter inevitably become the focus of both cooperation and competition. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, please hit on the like button and share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Till we meet next time, Jai Hind, Namaskar.